Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Liz. And yeah, this is an honor. This is the first webinar Wednesday that I've done, and I wanted to introduce Chase. Chase Brown. Was an intern for me for my company over the summer. He's a senior, and he's a communications major, and he's a good guy to know. And we thought that it would be really cool to have a student's perspective on this. So that's why he's here. So anything you want to shout out, Chase?
Just shout out to Olivia and Liz for having me along with this webinar with you. That's an amazing opportunity. This is like my first webinar, so this will be interesting. So
Yeah,
I appreciate you all for coming out, and hopefully you guys
yeah,
will get some experience and some knowledge on personal branding.
awesome. Well, we will get started. One thing that I want to start off with is at the end of this, I want you guys to really understand. Hopefully, you will understand what a personal brand is and how to use it. Like, what is it? Why do you need a personal brand as a college student? And why is that important? I will say that this is something that you're not going to figure out over tonight. It is not a one and done thing. It's a work in progress, and sometimes it takes time to refine that and figure that out. But the good news is that you're learning about it now. So that's a good thing. And one thing, when we're at the end, I wanted this talk to be something mechanical, something that you all can use to help you land a job or to get an internship or something like that. So this is hopefully going to be very practical, very mechanical, and it's something that I think you guys will like it. And at the end, one thing like a takeaway that I want you guys to have is how to come up with a one-liner. So when somebody asks you, what is it that you do, or how can you help, or what is it you want to do, you can say in a simple, concise form, this is it. So, so that's what we're going to talk about. And at the end, we will have some questions. So let me keep moving along here. Uh, so this is me. I graduated in 2002. I'm sharing how old I am now. And marketing major, and then I went to work for my family's company, and at the same time, I went back and got my master's degree, my MBA, and got that in 2006. I started my company. I have a public relations company called Blue Ridge PR, and started that in 2015. And there was I mean, this could be a whole different talk that we could take up an hour at least. But the journey that I went through to get to this point, there was a lot of curves and zigzags, and life happened to try that happened for me to get to this point in starting a company, being a business owner. And maybe that would be a talk for another time, but I knew what I wanted to do from early on, and there was a passion inside of me that wanted to elevate other people, that wanted to um, put other people on a platform and share their strengths. And I didn't know what that looked like. Um, I started. I worked for before I started my company. I worked for a public relations company, and I loved what I did, and and it wasn't a good fit where I was, but I knew that experience really honed in what it is that I feel like I'm called to do. And so my company now, it's a public relations company, but it has a focus on I call it executive branding, but it's personal branding. And we help executives build a communications platform to connect with their audience. It's as simple as that. And connecting with their audience might be creating leads. It might be It might be just other ways to build an audience, to build relationships, and that kind of thing. So that I'll get into a little bit more of that in a little bit. But I am married, 3 kids. We live here in DeLand, and a few things I do in my spare time is the next slide here. I love everything outside, and I share with you this because this is about me. It's not about me, but my brand and the idea of bringing a personal brand. I wanted to make this point clear from the very beginning is that when you guys get a job, you get a first job or an internship or whatever, you are not, your identity isn't wrapped up in only what you do. That it's a good part of it, but it's not that job. Your identity is not in that job. There are other things in life that are important. And these are some of the things important to me. I love the outdoors. I'm a scuba diver. Go mountain biking with my son. We like to go up to North Carolina um, in the summertime and escape this dreaded Florida humidity. So yeah, I mean, these are things that are important to me and make up who I am, in addition to what I do. It's not all what I do. So, what is personal branding? So, you probably recognize that lady there, the picture of her, and that is obviously Dolly Parton. And it's fascinating because I listened to a podcast about Dolly. It's a great podcast. It really, I recommend everybody listen to it. It's called Dolly Parton's America. And in that, I found out that she is one of the top 5 most recognized personal brands in the world, which blew me away. Like, really, Dolly Parton of all people. And it ranks up there with like Michael Jordan. I mean, it's up there. And the reason is that she is so consistent with who she is. Dolly is, she's a type of person that her personality transcends everything. And if you go to a Dolly concert or you go to Dollywood up in Tennessee in Pigeon Forge, you will see all sorts of people, all walks of life, all races. I mean, you'll see people from the faith community, you'll see people from LGBTQ plus community, different races, ages, genders. I mean, all walks of life. And it's because Dolly is a uniter, and she never talks bad about anyone. She is so consistent. There's even a class that studies this phenomenon about Dolly Parton at University of Tennessee in Knoxville, which is fascinating. But that is an example of a very well-known personal brand. But are we all going to be Dolly Parton, or like that? No. So what a personal brand is not. Talk about a few of those. It's not a logo. I mean, you hear the word branding thrown about, you think of colors, logos, and it's nothing like that. It can be, it can encompass that, but for this purpose, it isn't, and it isn't imitating somebody else. So you hear a lot about YouTubers and people, influencers and that kind of thing, and celebrities that, yeah, they have a personal brand, but people try to imitate that, and that's not what it's about. You already have a personal brand, and it's uniquely you, and we're going to talk about how to find out what that is tonight. And it's not for social media only. I mean, we all follow influencers on Instagram, Twitter, social media. That's only a small part of it. And that's a good point. We'll talk a little bit about social media, but you guys as students, and anybody, you got to be careful what you post, because I'm sure you'll hear this from career services department. the employers will look at your social media profiles. I mean, it's just that's the way it's going to be. They want to find out who you are. So it's important that you are consistent and you're putting something out there that you want to be seen. So why is a personal brand important? This is where I'm gonna bring in Chase and have him. He did some work. He did some blog posts and things for me over the summer. And so, Chase, as a college student, why is a personal brand important to you?
Okay. So if you guys don't know me, my name is Chase Brown. I'm a senior here at Stetson, also a former student athlete. In regards to Robbie's question, personal branding is very important as a college student because this will allow you to not only establish relationships, but also get yourself out there as far as jobs or careers that you might want to go into. For example, when Robbie first actually came here, me and Christine are very cool and everything. I met Robbie, and Robbie didn't know who I was exactly until I first met him, and then we had a little interview to talk about what we're going to be doing. But just from Christine actually knowing her, Christine was able to tell Robbie all about me before Robbie was able to get to know me. And then from there, Robbie already had a perception about me, a positive perception, and that goes back to with social media. You may not know anybody, but somebody can just perceive you off of, what they see off of social media. So that's why Robbie was just saying, as far as being active on social media, be wise about what you post. Christine easily could have been honest and told him, nah, I probably wasn't the right person to work with. All these negative connotations about me, but that wasn't the case. So it's all about what you do and how you manage your relationships on campus. What people perceive of you. So that's pretty much personal branding.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's it. And that's a good story to tell because Christine told me about Chase and his reputation preceded him, and it was a good one. And so she had my ear. I was like, okay, I want to learn more about this guy and talk to him. And so that's why students, alumni, this is one of the most important things that you can really start thinking about right now. Um, so one way to um, Chase kind of brought it up. It's about reputation. This is a quote from Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary says, "Your personal brand is your reputation, and your reputation in perpetuity is the foundation of your career." And and Chase alluded to that. It's about reputation, and you've got to be consistent. You've got to be careful, and when I see careful, you've got to be mindful of that. Now, Gary is an interesting guy, and some of you may or may not have followed Gary on social media. I would say that if you don't, be very careful because Gary, on some of his social media channels, he can drop some expletives. So I'm not saying to go out and necessarily do that, but on LinkedIn it is good content, and on LinkedIn it's clean. And so that's where I follow him, and he is um, he's a forerunner for this stuff, and he's talked about it for a very long time, and he encapsulates what it is in this statement that it's reputation. Your reputation is the foundation of your career, and um, it's so you don't want to be like Gary. You don't want to be like Dolly. We're gonna find out how you can be like you and how you can use that to your advantage. So, what is the best way to define our personal brand and communicate it? So, this is where we're gonna start kind of sidestepping and talking about something that just a little bit different topic, and we're going to come back to personal branding. As I said earlier, this is not this is a process. This is not going to happen overnight. And so with what you guys are going to learn tonight, it's something you're going to want to sit down maybe in a weekend or somewhere, if you got a few hours or somewhere where it's quiet, and start kind of pondering this stuff. But one of the best ways, and what we're going to kind of segue into, is the elements of story. Story is powerful. And I've got a quote here from Donald Miller, the book Story Brand. Read it. You guys, read it. It is a powerful book. It really relates more towards businesses, but what I'm talking about tonight is a lot of stuff that's pulled from Donald Miller, but we're relating it to a personal brand, how you guys can apply that. Story helps because it is a sense-making mechanism. Essentially, story formulas put everything in order so the brain doesn't have to work to understand what's going on. So we all have favorite books, we all have favorite movies. Chase, what you got a favorite movie?
Uh, I'm in a plethora of movies, so I'm trying to think.
I just put him on the spot.
I
He wasn't expecting
don't
it.
have a favorite movie probably, but I'd have a favorite TV show. Anime, probably Naruto. So that'd probably be
Okay.
my favorite anime show
Okay.
instead of a movie, because there's just too many movies.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of movies. There's, books, but what you'll find out, and you may come out of this with a different appreciation for story, and that's okay too. But every movie, every book, there's certain elements to it that it just you can almost know what's going to happen when you know the elements of story before it even happens in the movie or the book. And I probably just ruined like several movies and stuff for you guys, but it's the same formula, but our brains process story easily, and it makes it easy for us um, to communicate and to think in terms of story. So we're going to talk about how personal branding relates to story. So this, and then I got this from Story Brand, from Don, and this is basic elements of story. And each story, there's a character, obviously, and each character has a problem. And sometimes those problems are external, there's usually external, but a lot of times there's an internal and a philosophical problem. Philosophical would be like you just right or wrong, it's the right thing or the wrong thing to do. And internal struggles. Um, Sometimes, and then usually in most stories, there's a guide. There's a guy that or a girl that comes alongside of the main character. And my favorite 80s movie, Back to the Future, the guide is Doc Brown, Dr. Emmett Brown. And he is a stable figure. And Doc Brown helps Marty McFly, and he shows empathy and authority. I mean, he's a doctor, he knows what he's doing. But in the movie, he gives Marty a plan when Marty gets stuck in the past in the 1950s. Doc Brown gives him a plan and works with him through it. He's a more active guide than a lot of other guides in stuff we'll talk about in a little bit, but he gives him a plan of what it is that they don't have any plutonium in the 1950s for for the DeLorean time machine. So, but they know because of history, Marty knows that lightning is going to strike the clock tower in the town, and that's going to provide enough electricity to get the DeLorean back to 1985. So that's the plan, and there's usually a call to action in that, and that's what the action does. They implement the plan, and that usually results in a success or a failure. So in some stories, there's not too many failures, but it's a tragedy. Julius Caesar talked about tragedies. So here's a great example, and I promise we'll get back to personal branding after two examples. Click the next slide. There we go. Star Wars. hopefully everybody has seen Star Wars. If you haven't, then there's about to be a spoiler. So, the main character, Luke Skywalker, and Luke has a problem, and he knows that there's an empire out there. But before all of that, there's an internal problem. Luke does not know who he doesn't know who his parents are. He's an orphan. He knows that he is meant to do something amazing, or thinks he has something deep down, but he doesn't know what that is. So he meets a guide, actually two of them, throughout the first trilogy. The first one was Obi-Wan Kenobi. And Obi-Wan is this stable figure who gives Luke a plan. And he says to him that you're special. I know who you are. I know who your father was, and I'm gonna train you to trust the Force. And later on, as with Yoda, trains Luke to become a Jedi. There's a call to action. Call to action in a couple different places in the trilogy. The main ones is that you've got to confront Darth Vader, and and that's what you've got to do. And that action usually results in a success, that the Death Star is destroyed in the first movie. But if it hadn't, it would have been a failure. So the rebellion would have been crushed, and nobody, George Lucas did not want to put that out there. So that wouldn't be a very good story for Star Wars. But those are the elements of story. One more example is the Hunger Games. Chase, you said you read the Hunger Games, or at least the first book, right?
Yeah, I read and watched both the movies.
Yeah,
The only one I don't think I read nor seen was the Mockingjay, the
yeah,
Mockingbird.
yeah.
I haven't seen or read that one, so you can spoil that.
So, so the Hunger Games. I mean, the main character is Katniss, and she's got a problem, big problem. She's got to survive. I mean, it's literal survival. And she meets a guide, meets Haymitch, which is Woody Harrelson's character, and Haymitch is that guy who helps her, kind of comes alongside and kind of helps her and trains her, gives her a plan to endear the public to obtain sponsors. And then that's sort of like her strategy through the movie and the book. And the call to action is go and fight. And that results in the success. Katniss lives, and District 12 rejoices. If it failed, then Katniss dies, and District 12 is crushed. So hopefully you've seen one of those two movies and kind of see how the elements of story work, and how it's such an easy communication tool that most of them are all the same. I mean, a lot of them are all the same, and it still captivates us, but the same elements are there. So here is the main point for how this circles back to personal branding and how it can help you guys. You are the guide. And I say that because that's important, because in businesses, marketing messages for companies, they get it wrong. A lot of times businesses come in and just say, well, their messages kind of allude to, I'm going to come in and solve all of your problems, and I'm going to be that hero that's going to save the day. And what they should be talking about is that they're the guide. They're the ones, for their customers, their clients, whomever, they're the ones that's going to give them the tools to be successful, to make them successful. And you guys who are in the job hunt, you're the same way. You are a guide, and it's sometimes it takes a little bit different perspective, that you're the one that, for a future employer, you're the one that can help them. You're there not to do everything and not to be their end all be all, but you're there to help them solve a problem. And when you know that problem and know that your role as a guide, you will get interviews, you will get hired, and because especially communicating that and what we just talked about, the elements of story. Hang on here. So, you are the guide. Big point. So here's where Chase is going to come back in. So Chase alluded to the story a little bit earlier on how he and I met each other. And we were introduced to each other by Christine, and she kind of told me about Chase and told Chase about me and that kind of thing. So this is going to be this is a little bit more of a hypothetical. It didn't exactly go this way, but this is something that, Chase or any one of you could use. This is more Chase's story. And sorry, the words here are a little, when we uploaded it to the system, it kind of put things out of whack a little bit, but just bear with me on that. So in this situation, I'm the main character. I have a PR agency that's growing. I have some problems. One of those was that I needed some specific stuff to get done and needed cheap work, with no bones about it. And Jason, can you tell everybody just some of the things that you did while you were our internship?
I would love to. So for the main thing, before I even got to the whole public relations work with Robbie, the first thing I had to learn how to do was to transition to know how to write. Academic writing, as you all know, is not the same as PR writing. And when I say that, I mean that they're two different things. So with PR writing, like career writing, you kind of want to condense what you write, not writing biographies, essays, no, because with PR, if you want to get in public, you have an audience that you need to reach out to. So we all know that, for example, I like to relate this to emails. We get an email here and there. If it's long, we're not going to read it. The saying goes, you have about 5 to 6 seconds to impress somebody, and especially within the virtual world we are now currently in, if there's a long email that gets sent to you, you're most likely not going to read it. More than likely, you're going to trash it probably or not respond to the email. So going back to writing, I had to learn how to write efficiently in a timely manner. That way, work that I got sent out, people will be able to read. So basically what I would do, I would write for Robbie, write for the company, write blogs, and send out pitches. So sending out pitches, that's pretty much what I related to with writing efficiently, so I can meet more journalists for Robbie's. That way I can probably get an opportunity or interview, one of the two. And basically with that, I used I use Muckrack. Muckrack is a software that basically you can connect with other journalists in the world. It's very expensive to use, but it is worth it. So I was able to use Muckrack thanks to Robbie, connect with other journalists, and along with freelancers. So I would pitch them ideas that they would probably like, and sometimes they would respond, sometimes they wouldn't. But hey, that's the whole thing about internship. Sometimes you want to get into a field, but you're gonna have to, as they say, put your feet in the water. Kind of test the waters, as they say. So that's pretty much some things that I did. Write stories, send out blogs for the company, and the main thing I got out of it is being a better writer, a more efficient writer. Now that we're back in school, it's kind of it's kind of hard to basically kind of write lengthy because I was trained to not write as lengthy. So it was a difficult transition going back to the academic world and writing essays like 10 pages because I was taught not to write like that. So other than that, it was a good experience, and I learned a lot working with Robbie. So that's pretty much what I did for him the whole summer, and yeah, it was pretty fun.
Thanks. So that was a lot of work I needed to have done. And I usually do those things for my clients, but I didn't do that for me. I needed somebody to help me put out that content for myself. I do that for my clients, but when you do what I do, it's like it's easy to do it for others. It's hard to do it for yourself. So I knew that if I had an intern, that I would feel accountable to him or her and be able to get that work out that I needed to get done. So I didn't want to spend a lot of money doing it. So I mean that was an actual external problem, and I didn't have much time to train. But Chase talked about his writing, and his writing was pretty good to begin with, and it just needed some tweaks and things to make it better. And so that was sort of an internal thing. It's like, how am I gonna train somebody? Like I do all this work. I really didn't know the answer to that, but I was kind of taking a step of faith. And also a philosophical thing, I have a loyalty to my university. I have a loyalty to Stetson, and I would love, deep down, I wanted to find somebody, to be able to pour into somebody from my alma mater. So for Chase, and you can jump in here if you want, when we did the internship, um, he always told me that, he had other things going on in life, but he was like, Robbie, this is a priority, and I'm going to do what it takes. And he did. I mean, we worked around schedules and that kind of thing, and he got the work done, and he made it a priority. And so this is kind of what happened, but this is also something that Chase, doing this is also something that he can use as well going forward. So if Chase were to go to another business owner or another company, he can talk about, what he did for me, in being a guide and having, doing what it takes and making the internship a priority. But going a step further, he can kind of give them a plan on how it is that he can help them and what they could benefit from. And first steps on that could be connect on LinkedIn. He could send, he didn't have one, but now he could send, because he wrote some blog posts, he could send a portfolio. He could send his links from my website. I mean, he's got stuff he created he can show, and that could go to a meeting, or it could be, he could approach somebody and say, hey, I've got this experience. How about I do a pro bono project? Just one project to get the experience. I can put it on my resume and go, see what happens. You never know. And then a call to action would be, let's talk about a long-term position. If he goes to somebody and there's like a pro bono project or there's a meeting, at some point it's going to be like, can I help you long-term for the summer or for the semester or as a job? That would be a call to action. And then that would usually result in, for Chase's, in my perspective, the content got made. I got clarity on an internship program, which I had never had an intern before, and I was helping a fellow hatter. So I was fulfilling that philosophical problem that I had. And if that didn't work out, if Chase didn't come on board, then I would never got that content done. People would have missed out on seeing that. I missed out on a possible relationship with Chase. So this whole picture, I mean, this is something that you guys can do. And what I call this, and what Donald Miller calls this, is a brand script. So with each one of these blocks, there are messages that you can communicate to somebody else. You could communicate to somebody that we'll get into this a little deeper in just a minute, but I've worked with PR agencies in the past or in the problem section. You don't have to train me. Chase could say, I know how to write professionally now. I've got some experience doing that. So these are different things that you can put them all together in what I said in the beginning in a one-liner. Uh, that's what we're going to do. How do you put the pieces together? How do you make this something that you can use that will identify who you are, but also the strengths and the things that you can bring to the table to a potential employer? And that's where we're about to make it super practical. Okay. So, as I said, a one-liner. When someone asks, "What is it that you do?" And you're in college now, but you're a student, um, obviously. But beyond that, you can lead in with another, um, with this one-liner. So, if we go back up, we go back to the brain script, and you talk about, the problem that I had was I'm a PR agency that's growing, and I needed work done, and didn't have much time to train, those things. If you put those in this main character, it's a business owner, PR agency. I needed content for very little money. Never had an internship program before. The plan could be, hey, and we'll use Chase as a as an example here. So Chase can offer somebody a pro bono project. I mean, there's no risk in that, very little risk. And the success would be the content's generated that they would have never have completed before. So if you take all of that, you kind of bring the character, the problem, the plan, the success all together, and you tie it all together, you come up with a statement. And it's something like, I help business owners create and manage marketing content they never get the time to create by doing a one-off pro bono project. Drop the mic. You if you say that to somebody and you make a list of people that you would like to work for, and you connect with somebody and you say that's what you do, I mean, very little people are going to object to that. Once they kind of know and trust who you are. I mean, there's a little bit of a trust relationship factor that's got to come, but there's no risk in that. Very little. That if Chase was to come back to me, if we had never met, and Christine had not introduced us, and he said to me, "Hey, I know you have a company. I help business owners create and manage marketing content that they don't usually have time to create themselves, and I can do that in like just a project. If there's one piece of content you want me to write, I can do that." I'd be like, "Yeah, let me let's talk for sure because you just read my mail and uh, you know what I'm dealing with and you know what I need to get done." So, but the problem, I mean, not a problem. The challenge with all of this is that you really need to understand that character, who it is that you are trying to target, whatever business that is or organization, nonprofit. You need to understand who they are and the problems that they're facing. So, so you can go to them with this one-liner and uh, tell them how you can help them solve a problem. You're not going to solve the problem for them. You're there as that guide, and that's an important message to have that guide. So, I know we're running close, and we want to open it up for questions here in a little bit. So I'm wrapping this up here in a few minutes. So here's how you can do that. You've got to show your work, and like I said, Chase, he can now go back. He's got some content under his belt, and if he wants to go work for somebody else, and whether it be an internship or a part-time job while he's going through school or whatever it may be, he can go back to that brand script, that story guide thing where we filled everything in, and use those messages to help communicate how he can help them. And he can also tell them he's ready to show and tell how he can alleviate their problems of the people he's targeting. And he can show the proof. You've got proof too of something. I'm sure there might be some class project you've done, but I would recommend some type of volunteer work or internship, some type of previous work experience that you can show how you've helped somebody, and how that will alleviate their problems. And so where do you show it? Like, how do you communicate it? And so this is where I jump back on the LinkedIn bandwagon. Which Chase, because of me and Christine, we were like, you need a LinkedIn profile. You need a LinkedIn profile, and he did it. Did it. Um, he made one, and so that was a good step. But that one-liner we just talked about. I help business owners create, manage marketing content they never get the time to create by doing one-off pro bono projects. But you could put that on the top of your LinkedIn profile. Put it on the top of your resume that you're sending to that employer. And if they see that, man, it's it's game over. If they read it and it really speaks to their issues that they're dealing with, done. If they look you up on LinkedIn and they see some stuff that's posted that, yeah, this is what I need, they're going to be interested. So create as much content as you can. Post it, deliver it, ship it, as Seth Godin says. Just put it out there. Share your work. Show it. That's so important. You can DM relevant LinkedIn content to places you want to work. Don't be shy in doing that. I mean, if you're already connected with them on LinkedIn, it's not really spamming them. It's just like, hey, I just completed this project or something that, you might have a similar need or a similar problem. I can do something like this for you. Don't be shy. Reach out. Reach out to fellow Stetson alumni. You'll get their ear. This happened to me. There was a young lady who, I think she's a senior at University of Florida, and she's in the job hunt. And I guess she found me online, found my company, and just sent me her portfolio and this and that. And I was impressed. I mean, it lacked some of the verbiage and the things we're talking about tonight, the meat of that. But she did it, and kudos to her. I give her respect for doing that. And do a pro bono project. Offer that. You're not going to find many people turn that down. And I know it's like, I don't want to give my time away. It's worth something. That's true. This is a way you can earn trust. And it's a way that you can share that it's work in the beginning, but it may land you that job that you really, really want. Build a personal website, portfolio. I mean, you guys are savvy enough that you can do that. There's tools to do that. I've got a personal website that you'll see here on the next screen, the link to that. But that's so important to have a place that, your resume should be geared to land you an interview. If somebody wants to find out a little more information, have a place for them to go to. Show your work, show who you are, and you won't regret it. So, that was a lot of content, and that was a lot of I had to kind of fly through that a little bit to allow some time for questions. But feel free to ask some questions here in the chat box, and also feel free to reach out to me. I mean, that's my email address. My LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't be shy. I mean, I'll help I'll help you however I can. And then that's I've working on my own, kind of practicing what I preach, my own personal website, and it's a little bit of a work in progress, but you'll get the idea of what it looks like. So yeah, that that is pretty much it. Questions for me? Questions for Chase? Let's hear them.
Do we need a LinkedIn account for the Career Expo? Answering Emma's question.
Liz should probably answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for asking that question. You do not need a LinkedIn account to attend the expo. You only need to RSVP and then attend on Friday from 11 to 2 p.m. And I'll drop the information in the chat again. So great question. You do not need a LinkedIn profile, but it would be helpful maybe to, think about some different things that Robbie and Chase said about maybe introducing yourself to an employer or an organization, maybe a draft of your resume so you can hand that out, but no LinkedIn required.
Good answer. There's one question up a little higher up that James asked earlier, and he said, "What are some strategies you would use to establish a name brand?" So really, I mean, we discussed that for the most part, I think, and I think he posed that question before we really dug into the meat of that. But yeah, do a brand script and do a one-liner and come up with that way. Use those strategies and those messages to connect with people. It's not necessarily a name brand. I mean, your name is your name. That should be enough. Once people know who you are and know how you help them, that's all that really matters. Let's see. Benny mentioned the Dolly Parton podcast. Are there other podcasts that you enjoy listening to stay on top of interesting information? Yes. I'm actually going to type it in here. It is the Story Brand podcast, Donald Miller, and that's a great one. Totally tune into that. I would say I don't listen to him that much, but I know a lot of people listen to Tim Ferriss's podcast. He jumps in on stuff like that. Tim Ferriss is a wealth of knowledge, just on everything. So, yeah, there's I'm trying to think what else there is. There's a guy on personal branding. His name is, I can't think of the name of his podcast, but his name is Rory Vaden. He's a great guy to follow. He's let me write his name in. I can't remember the name of his podcast, but that's his name. What, Liz? There's another question for Liz. Is there a link for cultural credits? Or that's Olivia.
Yes, I'll be dropping it in here in a couple minutes after the Q&A session.
It says, what is a top skill you look for in an intern or employee? That is putting me on the spot now. Top skill. I think, it's not, skills are important, but this is going a little bit off topic, but it's important. And I would hire somebody more if they were a good fit for working with me than it would be their skills per se. So somebody that might be in my case, Chase was a student athlete, and his grades were good, and so balancing those two things, that's a lot to do, and so that's discipline. I mean, that takes somebody that isn't afraid of hard work and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's what I would look for. Is somebody that's more of a fit, because you can train the skills. And so, basic skills. Yeah, I mean, I needed to know somebody who can write. So communications, journalism, even marketing major was probably where a place that I'd want to start. But character, cultural fit, those kinds of things. Those are really important.
I think Liz had a question. Chase, as a senior, what is a piece of advice you have for other students from time that Stetson Anthony would do differently?
That's a good
That's a
question.
great question. That's a great question, Liz, actually. A piece of advice I would give to the underclassmen, just make relationships. Just establish relationships with everybody. I know, like, coming out of high school or transitioning to college, you may be a little shy, but I promise you, your classmates, your future classmates, they're going to be the ones driving the BMWs, the ones that's going to be working in the big Power 5 companies. Just make relationships, even with professors. Like, I know it's some professors now that I had my freshman year, I still talk to now on a daily basis, as if I was still in their class. And I know that doing that, they'll be willing to help you with anything, whether that be advising or just looking for jobs as well. That's the main thing, man. Just make relationships with everybody, and it doesn't matter who it is. Just make relationships. Just talk to everybody. Even like the custodians on campus, I talk to them every day. Like I'm a resident assistant too, RA as they say. If you guys know me, so I do a lot. So just talking to them, the custodians, I make sure I talk to everybody because you never know who's going to put you in a position to be successful, and also can be your mouthpiece in getting a job. Like, for
Right.
example, that story I told in meeting Robbie, I didn't know who Robbie was until Christine brought me to my attention with Robbie, and that was because Christine knew me around campus, knew that I was well developed in everything as far as what I was doing on campus. I was involved in a lot of things. So just off of that, like the positive attitude that I had, Christine was able to tell Robbie, and that's how pretty much Robbie was an example on how he met me and thought that I could be for his company. So just establishing relationships would be my thing that I would have learned coming in as a freshman. So that would be a tip of advice I would give to you.
Good word. Good word. Madison asks, can you share your application process and/or experience when applying and entering graduate school? Man, that was a long time ago for me. I don't know. Like, I do remember for me, I knew I was working for my family's business at the time when after I graduated, and I'd gotten married, and I knew that I didn't want to stay in the family business forever. So I was like, you know what? It's a good place for now. It's sort of paying the bills. I'm going to apply for graduate school. And so, yeah, I don't know that that's really going to answer your question, that experience, but it was something that sort of like was a next step for me at the time where I thought that was going to be. And I don't know. For me, graduate school was the MBA program. It was great. I mean, but the thing that I took away from it is that it continued to make me want to learn, and that's really, you think, depending on what you do, it can give a pay increase or get you a better job, and sometimes that's true, but I think honestly, I mean, it depends on what what it is that you're trying to go into, but experience is just as good or better in graduate school. I mean, if you can do both, great, but combined with it, and I went back after I got some real world experience. I didn't go right after college, so my undergrad. I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, that was a long time ago.